The AgriPath Scaling Framework for Digital Agricultural Advisory Services, DAS, supports the work of various stakeholders, government agencies, donors, accelerator programs, incubation programs, DAS practitioners and implementers, and other market actors involved and interested in bringing DAS to scale. The framework provides answers to questions such as: can DAS be scaled, and what does scale mean? What will it take to scale my digital agricultural advisory service? How important is it to start out with a business model?
Hello, I'm Alizée Boutingès. I'm working as a director at Altai Consulting, and we've been supporting the AgriPath project together with our colleagues from the Grameen Foundation. The AgriPath Scaling Framework is the tool for DAS practitioners and other agriculture ecosystem stakeholders to help them scale DAS, so Digital Agricultural Advisory Services, and thereby helping them to unlock their full potential to improve the lives of farmers and also help them produce food in a more sustainable way. As part of AgriPath, it's been very important to make sure that what we do, the research that is being conducted, has real tangible impact. And for this to be achieved, it's very important that the DAS, the services that are being developed, go beyond the proof of concept, go beyond the pilot stage, but really scale to reach a large number of farmers, and really making sure that the usage of DAS and the content that is being shared through this DAS becomes institutionalized and become common practice by farmers so that it can really make an impact. And one of the challenges is that while many digital agricultural advisory services are being developed in many different countries across many different value chains, the reality is that very few of them manage to scale. And this is a big missed opportunity for two main reasons. The first one, of course, is that when DAS scale, they can have a massive impact on farmers because they can help them to improve their productivity, improve the quality of their produce, and by doing so, it helps them to have improved revenues or also improve capacity to face climate shocks, for instance. And it can also help them to adopt more sustainable practices. So very important that it reaches a large amount of farmers. The second reason why these services have to scale to have a real impact is because there is the marginal cost of reaching additional farmers is lower and lower as you scale. This big fixed cost to develop the service, to make it work, etc., you don't have to pay it anymore. And scaling is just about adding an incremental cost to reach additional farmers and have more impact. So that means that if these services manage to scale, there is a real potential to have very cost-efficient intervention by having farmers use and benefit from these services. So this framework has been designed to help DAS providers, so the ones that are really designing the services, address some of the common misconceptions that exist when it comes to scale, and really provide them with guidance, examples to avoid falling in the trap at the pilot stage, and really make sure that the service that they design from the beginning has the potential to scale. The framework is also targeting all of the other ecosystem stakeholders, that is government representatives, that is donors, private companies, NGOs, etc., who are working in the ecosystem and who also have a role to play to create the favorable conditions that can enable these services to scale. The framework was designed based on mixed methods, so an in-depth desk review. We also conducted over 30 different key informant interviews with a variety of practitioners. So, of course, people who are developing these DAS services, but also governments, research institutions, donors, investors, agricultural, private stakeholders, etc. And we had a focus on three main countries: India, Burkina Faso, and Uganda, where the AgriPath project is being implemented. Some of these interviews being conducted in person and other remotely. But we, of course, look through the desk review through what happens also in other parts of the world to really understand the best practices. The framework is a tool, as we mentioned. It's about 70 slides long, and the objective is really to support the DaaS practitioners and also, as we mentioned, the ecosystem stakeholders. So the tool is really split into two different sections. The first one, which is called Priority Pillars, will address three components that have to be in place for a service to scale and that are often overlooked by the DaaS developers. So we really wanted to investigate these and really unpack why often DaaS providers struggle to be successful on these components, which then present barriers for them to scale their services. The second section of the framework, this time focusing on other ecosystem stakeholders. And similarly, we look at what needs to be there to support DaaS to scale. And so we look at these different blocks, so to say, and how these different types of practitioners can design programs that can help put in place the favorable conditions for DaaS to scale. Maybe just quickly on the key highlights of the scaling framework. For the three priority pillars, first very important one is community-based agents, CBAs. One of the main misconceptions we find out through the research is that we think that because DaaS are digital services, you do not need any more agents to scale. And this is not true. It's not true because for this segment of population that is being targeted by DaaS, so the farmers, there is a trust component that is very important. And agents are there to really make sure that the farmers are comfortable and know how to use the service. Another major challenge is, of course, the digital literacy of the farmers. And finally, another very important reason is that as you scale, you will start reaching out to categories of farmers that maybe are less familiar, live in more remote areas, are a bit less digitally literate, etc. And to onboard them on your service, so to scale, you will need agents to help them start using the service. So again, this is a common misconception, but agents are needed for this service to scale. So in the framework, we are really making the diagnosis, looking at why this is a key barrier to scale, and most importantly, how it can be addressed. So we have very practical guidance on how to identify agents, how to manage an agent network, how to train them, how to incentivize them, etc., to make sure that you have this network in place that you will need to scale your service. The second very important pillar for DaaS to scale is business model and access to financing. Very often when DaaS are being piloted, they have obtained one grant, often from a public donor, and they start developing and piloting the service with this grant. The challenge is that very often, because developing these services already takes a lot of time and energy, the DaaS developers do not think about the next phase. So what will be the next funding source to continue to develop the service beyond this grant? And this, of course, poses a major challenge. So it's very important that from the beginning, from the inception, there is this reflection around how will I secure financing after this initial grant. So either I have the capacity to generate revenue, so that means I have to find a strong, sustainable business model for my DaaS, or I will need to make sure that I have access to other types of financing through maybe government subsidies, through banks, a loan at a bank, for instance, through equity, whatever the mean, of course, access to financing will be key to scale the service. So in the framework, we are exploring this. We are exploring the different types of business models that can be developed by DaaS providers to make sure that they can generate revenue on their own, and post this pilot phase, continue to develop and scale the services. And finally, the third priority pillar that we have identified relates to content. Very often, and that's normal, the pilot focuses on a specific country, a specific region within that country. So that means very often just one language on one specific value chain. And so you need only access to a limited amount of content. But as you scale, you will be targeting new countries, new languages, new value chains, and you need to make sure that you have access to this big amount of content so that you can scale your service. So in this section of the framework, we are really exploring this, the content strategy, how to secure access to very robust, scientifically verified content. And secondly, how do you transform, so to say, that content? So of course, translate it, but also put it in formats that are relevant for the farmers so that they can really use them, so that you can scale your services. So this is in a nutshell what you will find in the framework for this section for DAS providers on this priority pillar to scale. And in the second section, you will find the other enablers that we have identified. This one focusing more on other ecosystem stakeholders and what they can do to support the scaling of DAS. We are, for instance, exploring infrastructure and assets. So, of course, for DAS to scale, you will need access to reliable, affordable internet, mobile internet, including in rural areas, so that farmers can use it. So how do you do that? What can be also very helpful is if there is a national agriculture vision in the country that really promote DAS as a way to change the agricultural practices and to improve productivity. You also need, of course, an enabling business environment, an ecosystem that encourages investors to invest in the country, that encourages entrepreneurs to build their services and to develop DAS, for instance. Another important enabler, of course, is human capital. You will need local agronomists to create this scientific knowledge that will be disseminated through the DAS. You will need to have marketing specialists, etc., etc. So really, that there is this human capital available for the DAS companies so that they can build a strong team for the service. And finally, another very important enabler is what we have called users and communities, which is the structuration of these rural areas. If farmers, for instance, are structured into groups, into cooperatives, etc., of course, it will make it easier to reach out to them and to help them use these DAS services. So thank you very much.
For more information, read the complete framework on the AgriPath website or reach out to AgriPath Consortium partner, Grameen Foundation.